funny. It's about sending a message.
Yo, let's burn some copper, shall we? Welcome to my sex spotlight vid at my channel, Sequential Geek. I will be doing a sequential spotlight on Mr. John Byrne and his work at Marvel Comics, emphasizing his key collectible comics from the Fantastic Four. That's right. Can't believe I'm doing this vid. I don't have his early work. This was originally just going to be a video of me showing off my John Byrne Fantastic Four comics, like my key John Byrne FF books, because I dig Copper Age comics. I was going to emphasize on some Byrne. Well, doing some research on his early works, I was just going to give a backstory. Ended up growing, collecting a bunch of images that I'm about to throw at y'all. I don't have the original issues to start off, so actually first, John Byrne was born in England, July 6th, 1950, until the age of 8, and his parents moved to Canada. Do you recall seeing something about how he went to school out in Calgary, some type of art school? He didn't finish it. He's a dropout. John Byrne, quitter. He said, "My first professional comic book sale was to Marvel, a short story called Dark Asylum, which languished in a flat file somewhere until it was used as filler in giant-sized Dracula number 5. That is the year 1975. Cover date, June. Like all the rest of my videos, I will be referring to cover dates. So the comics or magazines, whatever, they actually hit the stands probably 2-3 months earlier. So Giant Size Dracula number 5 was an 8-page story, 1975. To start off, think about, if you want to refer John Byrne to a couple of years, 1975 and 1977, and then 1979. Just those 3 years right there. There's a lot of info. Per Wiki, Byrne said he broke into Marvel Comics after writer Chris Claremont offered John Byrne Marvel work. So Marvel jobs began to eventually give him consistent work so he could leave Charlton Comics. And in particular, the comic book Marvel Premiere had some guys that didn't fulfill their deadlines, and Marvel Premiere 25 was one of John Byrne's first Marvel comics. And that is October 1975. And then John Byrne and Chris Claremont teamed up for a bunch of titles that allowed John Byrne to gain notoriety and set up his career on these next few years. I don't have the Iron Fist comic, but I got this reprint here of the second to last issue. That's a Dave Cockrum layouts on that cover, with Al Milgrom doing the finishes and the inks of Sabretooth's first appearance. That's right, on a 1977 Iron Fist 14. But they teamed up, Chris Claremont scripting with John Byrne's pencils, in 1975. So to recap, 1975, we got Giant Size Dracula number 5, cover date June 1975, for that 8-page story. And then we got Marvel Premiere number 25, that Iron Fist appearance, the Chris Claremont story, John Byrne doing the pencils. And then we got November 1975 with Iron Fist issue number 1. And that ran until Iron Fist 15, September 1977. So now, September 1977, what else happened in that month as the last issue of Iron Fist issue 15? Well, what happened is Marvel Team Up. It's the issue that has the Human Torch with Spider-Man. Check it. First of all, 1977, Jim Shooter started as editor-in-chief for the next 10 years, until 1987. Although while serving as the regular penciler of the X-Men, as of the end of this year, 1977, Byrne began penciling another superhero title, The Avengers. That's right. He first drew issues scripted by Jim Shooter, issues 164, 165, and 166, again in 1977. as well. Same year, he did illustrations for The Champions, issues 12, 13, 14, 15, and 17. Yeah. So, after John Byrne did Marvel team-up issues written by Bill Mantlo, 53 to 55, his second time around at Marvel team-up, he replaced Sal Buscema. As of July 1977, Marvel team-up issue number 59. Chris Claremont was still scripting. Iron Fist appeared, of course, because you got Chris Claremont writing with John Byrne. Makes sense, right? John Byrne, by the way, real quick, he did issue 100. That was his last Marvel team-up issue. And he had set up the Storm, T'Challa, Love, that has been burning ever since. Give me a minute, okay. But also in this story, you had young Karma appear with the Frank Miller story with Bob Whitesec doing the inks to Frank Miller's art. So I guess it's like a filler by proxy for Byrne, maybe. Yeah. Anyway, Marvel Team Up 63 out of November 1977 is the Iron Fist appearance. Let's keep the record straight. Although Marvel Team Up issue 62 has a scroll appearance with Miss Marvel, fuck all that. I'm talking about Marvel Team Up 61, and that is cover date September 1977, which still, yes, is the same month as Iron Fist 15, 1977. That one is the Human Torch by John Byrne, your first FF member. Burning Up, Marvel Team Up 61. John Byrne's breakout year was 1977, in my opinion, at least this first phase. So real quick, he teamed with Chris Claremont for the Marvel magazine Marvel Premiere, number 11, summer 1977. That's a black and white magazine featuring Star-Lord. And then the 1977 build-up to burning FF comics at this point, and it's the beginning of Chris Claremont and John Byrne's X-Men run. As of cover date December 1977, with X-Men number 108. Number 109 has an appearance of Weapon Alpha, first appearance of James McDonald Hudson, right? Founder of Department H, Alpha Flight. He's the man behind searing that adamantium onto Logan's bones. Got the formula from, what is it? Eureka's father? Dark Wind? Yet I do believe that is a Chris Claremont story. Anyway, I digress. Back on the Byrne track. As 1977 was ending, X-Men 108 and 109 are coming out. Byrne and Claremont are finishing off Iron Fist the same month as Marvel Team Up issue 61, Human Torch and Spider-Man, September 1977. 1979 now. Marvel 2-in-1 53, July 1979. Mark Grunwald, Ralph Macchio story. John Byrne doing the art of your next Fantastic Four Byrne victim, The Thing. While serving as that regular penciler of the X-Men, Byrne began penciling The Avengers, 1979. 79, baby. Byrne returned with David Michelini to co-create Scott Lang in Avengers 181, March 1979. So Byrne returns a couple years after those 3 issues by Jim Shooter, The Avengers, with David Michelini to co-create Scott Lang in Avengers 181, March 1979. It's important to note how John Byrne illustrated those 11 issues of Avengers comics in 79. I gotta mention that because in that same year, it's the first collectible comic, the first Fantastic Four comic here with interiors by John Byrne, FF209. First John Byrne interior pencils in the Fantastic Four. Also, first comic book appearance of Herbie. It's your comic book adaptation of the cartoon where he first appeared in. August 1979 cover date. Right, so we got right here, Avengers 186 direct edition. Stephen Grant and Mark Grunwald plot with David Michelini's script. John Byrne covers and interiors. It's a 3-part story that ran from Avengers 185 to 187. It's an origin of Pietro and Wanda Maximoff. Wanda was getting these reoccurring nightmares, visions in her dreams. They had to go back to Wundagore Mountain. So Avengers 186, Terry Austin did the inks on that cover, August 1979 again. Just important to note, all right? So Chthon, this elder god, right? So way back when. We're talking this one goddess of the earth, right? Gaia, Gaea, or whatever. Goddess of the earth, Gaia. She was trying to get rid of these evil gods, entities. Chthon was one of them. And he knew that she was going to get rid of him. So he fled to this other dimension. He created the Darkhold. It's kind of like a conduit for him to still have a connection to this mortal realm. So Chthon and Mordred the Mystic, this guy right there, their first appearance is in 1979, Marvel Chillers, issue number 1. So Marvel Spotlight, issue 4, was the first appearance of the Darkhold. It was first mentioned in the previous issue, Marvel Spotlight 3. And yeah, Chthon, whatever. Mordred the Mystic, first appearance is Marvel Chillers, number 1. So this features the first appearance of a Chthon-possessed Scarlet Witch, a Dark Scarlet Witch, which is considered a precursor for John Byrne's Dark Phoenix character. All right. Dark Phoenix first appeared in the X-Men 134, cover date June 1980. You could say later on in the West Coast Avengers in the late 80s, John Byrne takes off more from this story about the Scarlet Witch. And after this Wundagore Mountain story, John Byrne did 3 more issues of the Avengers, 188 to 190. Issue 191, even though John Byrne is credited, he didn't do the cover. It was just the breakdowns for the interiors. So leading up to John Byrne working on the Fantastic Four titles, at this point, we now have, for 1979, the Marvel Team-Up issue number 61 with the Human Torch. September 1977 cover date. Then The Thing in Marvel 2-in-1 53, July 1979. So we're burning fire and earth, y'all. And by the end of 1979, Byrne's been completing 11 issues of these Avengers stories. Pretty awesome. And halfway into this, we begin to see these Fantastic Four comic books. That issue 209 there, and my first John Byrne Fantastic Four collectible, right? The first John Byrne interiors and Fantastic Four. Pretty cool. August 1979. And then that leads to these next John Byrne collectibles, if I may. So we got 2 Keith Pollard covers. Pollard, however you pronounce it. 209 and 210 with John Byrne's first interior Fantastic Four pencils. Marv Wolfman's writing these stories up until issue 217. You ready? Herbie, what does it stand for? Got your pad of paper and pen? Are you ready? Human Experimental Robot B-Type Integrated Electronics. Yeah, Keith Pollard covers with Joe Sennett inks. After these 2 issues, leads me to my next phase of Byrne and FF. So now with issue 211, it's our first John Byrne Fantastic Four cover. Not only is it John Byrne doing his first cover while working the interior pencils, we got the first appearance of Terox. That's right. Terox the Tamer, Herald of Galactus. Originally Tyros, he was like this despot ruling this little city-state. He's a, what do you call this guy? Geological telekinetic, geokinetic. He manipulates Earth matter. And his 1979 is coming to a close. My opinion, John Byrne's coming more into his own right here with this issue 214. Issue 212 is a Walt Simonson cover. 213 is a Joe Sinnott cover. They're kind of weak. I didn't get them. Whatever, each to his own. 214 there, I see that a lot on the left when a lot of people talk about early John Byrne comics. I'm not sure why people refer to that comic all the time there on the left when they refer to early John Byrne comics, but looks like he's really coming into his own a little bit more here, just each cover. Like I said, Marv Wolfman wrote up until issue 217, but these next two comics are actually covers that are done by different artists outside of John Byrne. 213 is a John Byrne cover. Got to keep an eye out for that one. That's December 1979, following up with that Terex the Tamer story. It's a Ron Wilson cover on the left with Joe Rubenstein doing the inks. Bright, just brilliant looking covers there. It's very striking. Dope, man. 215 there on the left. And then on the right, you got a Rich Buckler cover with Al Milgrom inks. 217 was Marv Wolfman's last issue. It's 217 that is a Joe Sinnott cover. Pretty cool Ron Wilson cover right here, though. And then here's your Rich Buckler. Al Milgrom inks. Al Milgrom's really cool. I met him at this Comic-Con in Macomb, Michigan. It's pretty fucking cool. I think it's like the Great Lakes Con. Bill Mantlo did one story. So we got that Al Milgrom finishing the cover of issue 216, and that is a full-on Al Milgrom cover right there. And issue 218. John Byrne's still doing the interiors, but it's the last one in John Byrne's run for his first Fantastic Four comic, penciling the interiors. So 209 to 218. It's the first run of John Byrne pencils. Walt Simonson did the cover for issue 212. 211 and 213 are your first two Fantastic Four John Byrne covers. So now 1980. What are we talking 1980? Empire Strikes Back came out in 1980, right? Now issue 218. Bill Mantlo wrote this one issue of the Fantastic Four, May 1980. It's a really cool Al Milgrom cover. Also in 1980, just as reference of what was going on with John Byrne, Captain America, written by Roger Stern. John Byrne was penciling those issues from 247 to 255, and yes, that does include issue 250, where Captain America was considering running for the office of President of the United States. I hope they never actually follow through with that. What else was going on in 1980? How about this Pence variant? This came out. John Byrne had just a few more issues of the X-Men to go. He did the interiors without the covers. The last two, issue 142, 143, were the last two John Byrne X-Men comics. Uncanny X-Men, I should say. Issue 141, that first part of Days of Future Past, is the last time John Byrne did the X-Men cover. This particular comic right here came out in November 1980. Kitty Pryde joins the X-Men. Not only that, but it's Heather Hudson's first appearance, as well as Wolverine's new costume. First appearance right here, the brown one. Check it. John Byrne doing the pencils. Chris Claremont, script. So John Byrne worked on the X-Men from December 1977 until March 1981. And then 4 months later, Fantastic Four, FF232. 209, his first interiors in 1979. 211, his first cover, as well as the interiors. Got your first appearance of Terex there, 1979. Now you've got Fantastic Four 220. Huge deal. John Byrne is doing the cover. He's doing the interior pencils, and he is now writing 2 issues. It's Fantastic Four issue 220. Fantastic Four issue 221 has the cover by Bill Sienkiewicz. Definitely coming into his own right here. Looking more and more like your John Byrne that we've come to know and love throughout the Copper Age. So after John Byrne finishes up his run with the Avengers, with the X-Men, he's now taking on more responsibility with the Fantastic Four. Yet, this is only for 2 issues where he's writing the Fantastic Four. This is issue 220 where he gets to do the cover. It's his 3rd cover now. 211, was it 211, 213, now 220? July 1980. First writer credit here. Let's see. Here we go. Right, so his interior run, that's what, your 209 till 218, and then issue 219, and then from issue 222 up until issue 231, that's when you have, how do you pronounce it, Doug Moench. It's the writer with Bill Sienkiewicz doing the covers and the interiors. Just to give you an idea of what was going on, just to kind of compare the styles, kind of get an idea of how these, in my opinion, just the stories, the covers, the interiors, John Byrne is reviving this image that, although these covers by Bill Sienkiewicz are exciting, very eye-catching, I find the Fantastic Four books that followed to be a lot more iconic. Even like for the time, maybe you could say more sleeker, thicker inking lines around the edges, less kind of sketchy, not so much. How do you put it? I don't necessarily want to say more refined, but yeah, I guess thicker lines, thicker inking, more defined around the edges, more defined spaces. Yeah, very, I guess you could say also, that being said, more straightforward as far as how people are presented. So you can just jump right on and get to know the Fantastic Four, because the name of this story arc, I believe, is Back to the Basics. You were taking Silver Age characters, the Fantastic Four, and as people would say, they were bringing back the Golden Age in a Silver Age comic during the Copper Age. Hell yeah. I guess you could say starting off in the Bronze, but it's just this whole culmination of eras with this talent from John Byrne was just sinking. Everything was working together. It was firing on all gears successfully. Byrne was kicking ass. So, getting an idea, I mean, you got this great Kirby crackle that Sienkiewicz was using. If you look at some early Incredible Hulk covers from the 1980s, there's some early Sienkiewicz work where he's coming into his own on those. But not to go too far off on tangent, these are great covers. They're very exciting looking, but how do I put it? It's definitely, like you would say, you could look at that and say, oh yeah, that's early 80s, that's late 70s, I suppose. But what, issue 229, issue 230, right? Doug Moench, Bill Sienkiewicz. Yeah, 232 is July 1981. yeah, it just seems like Byrne's got this way to make things look modern, but then at the same time, a lot of it is kind of like how Byrne would keep the same old thing, yet have it seem modernized or have it seem new. Replace She-Hulk, right? Replace Thing with She-Hulk. They're both very assertive, kind of lackadaisical, open, outgoing personalities. Both the invulnerable powerhouse of the team. Still kind of the same, but he is switching things up. Not being in your face about the fact that the Thing is being replaced with a woman. Not being in your face about the fact that Sue Storm in this comic book issue here, Fantastic Four 232, in 1981, she cuts her hair short. Nobody made a big deal about it. I didn't even remember that until I just looked it up doing some research on this. Doctor Strange is in this comic book, issue 232. Diablo, right? So you're going back to the basics. You got these elementals that he summons to attack the Fantastic Four, and it's the fire one that attacks Mr. Fantastic. It's really cool how Mr. Fantastic is depicted as dealing with this fire elemental. See too, he like tries to evade this fire elemental, turning himself into a ball, bouncing around, and then breaks through outside the tower. And then since he's falling, he spreads himself out into like this sheet. It's this very ridiculous looking images from him being a ball to this like sheet that he's trying to then ride the staying afloat on the air currents between all the buildings and such. It's this ridiculousness that, in my opinion, having someone with this kind of ability it's really interesting because you're combining it with the mind of the most intelligent person on the planet with such a ridiculous kind of looking power. I just find that very interesting. And a lot of times you got Mr. Fantastic being depicted just as the most intelligent person on the planet, not necessarily even used as somebody that has these like water-like kind of plastic man, stretching abilities, expanding himself around places and shit. Yeah, great silliness. Why else can you love it but comics? Thank you, John Byrne. Right. Total ridiculousness, yet taken completely serious because John Byrne knows how to write a goddamn story. Because ever since this issue right here, he is not only writing the story, doing the covers, doing the pencils, but he's doing all the inks as well. It's pretty amazing. Johnny Storm starts dating Frankie Ray as of this issue. Joe Sinnott, the inker that I've been referring to, he ends his 16-year run inking the Fantastic Four since issue number 44, November 1965. And then since Fantastic Four 45, he's been doing inks for the covers and the interiors. So he's been inking the covers, the interiors, 16 years, up until right here. Terry Austin, by the way, he does actually ink some of the covers, like issue 236. The anniversary issue, right? You got Stan Lee right there. So not only in this 20th anniversary issue, you got a nice little image of Stan Lee right there, but you also got a Jack Kirby story in there. These are all sealed up. Otherwise, I'd open it up and show you. Jack Kirby, I think he does just like a couple-page story in this Fantastic Four 20th anniversary issue. It's pretty cool. I think this is John Byrne's first image on a comic book or just a Fantastic Four comic. It's issue 238 right there. It's pretty cool. And Terry Austin did the inks on the covers for issue 240, 241, and yes, Terry Austin did the inks on the covers for 242. Let's not get too ahead of myself right here. At issue 232, just want to make sure to point out, definitely getting a little bit too ahead of myself here, because I want to point out it's issue of 222 when Doug Munch and Bill Sienkiewicz took over from those two issues that John Byrne did. Franklin Possessed, a magic-based story. Just wanted to note real quick. It's out of September 1980. Franklin gets possessed by Nicholas Scratch. Agatha Harkness, his mother, earlier in another comic book, she was able to take away Salem 7's power and keep her son, Nicholas Scratch, imprisoned in this dark realm. So by Fantastic Four 222, he wants to escape. He finds this portal into the negative zone, and then from there, he possesses Franklin Richards. You've also got this character called Gabriel Rossetti. He's a devil hunter, and he's used to fight the magic of Nicholas Scratch. He works together with Agatha Harkness, and she ends up stripping her son, this Nicholas Scratch guy, of his powers, and she denounces him as her son. So there's also this woman called Desadia, which is this Gabriel Rossetti's partner. It's an exorcist. They're from Haunt of Horror, issue number 2, 1974. I mentioned that as a side note, since horror comics are getting a little bit popular. And then, 222 to issue 231, you got Doug Munch writing with Bill Sienkiewicz right there doing the art. 229, 230, Bill Sienkiewicz covers Doug Munch story. Yep. John Byrne used some pen name Bjorn Hayden as the inker for this first issue that he started off his run on the Fantastic Four run. You like that Darth Vader carrying case right there? I figured it'd be kind of a cool background considering how Darth Vader is based off of Doctor Doom. And as I was showing before, issue 236, the 20th year anniversary, Alicia Master's stepfather, the Puppet Master, and Doctor Doom capture the FF and place their minds in this like miniature world where they don't know who they are. And Doom likes to enter the world and role play that he's Reed Richards' boss, talks down to him. Speaking of mind control, people's minds getting wiped, not knowing who they are, we got the origin here of Frankie Ray. Fantastic Four issue 238. Frankie Ray, her stepfather, is Phineas T. Horton. It's scientist that created the original Human Torch and the first Marvel comic, Timely's comic called Marvel Comics, right? That Human Torch burning through the wall, that guy shooting him and the bullets burning. Marvel Comics #1 from 1939. You know what I'm saying? All right, this guy, Phineas T. Horton, since he finds out about the Human Torch, he wants to bring back his creation of the original Human Torch, the android that was part of the Invaders, Human Torch, Toro, Namor, Captain America during World War II. So Horton wants to recreate this android. He takes Frankie Ray to his warehouse, tells her to grab some chemicals, a vat of chemicals. She accidentally spills them on herself. These are the chemicals that would allow the Human Torch android, I think its alias was Jim Hammond. So it allowed this android to ignite, turn on fire. Chemicals, Frankie Ray accidentally spills them on herself. Yeah. Her first appearance, by the way, is Fantastic Four issue 164, written by Roy Thomas out of 1975. So Phineas T. Horton, this guy here, I tell you, he hypnotizes his stepdaughter, Frankie Ray, to forget all of this ever occurred. He tells her that she has a fear of fire and that she has to wear like this bodysuit. It's like a swimsuit. Some Freudian connotations here. It would suppress her ability to ignite, and so these repressed memories that get removed essentially, and she is now the new Human Torch alongside the Fantastic Four's Johnny Storm. Right there on the right with issue 239. Oh yeah, issue number 240. Attilan, the Inhuman's home. He moves from, what is it, the Himalayas to the blue area on the moon in this issue, 240. In addition, Black Bolt and Medusa's daughter, Crystal. Quicksilver and Crystal have Luna Maximoff. Born Fantastic Four, issue number 240, December 1981. Quick, just want to note, Black Panther appearance in here in issue number 241. We got what, May 1982. We are now leading up to more developments of Frankie Ray. You know, the more I think about it, the origin of Frankie Ray, how she spilled those chemicals on herself and she ignited on fire and turned into the Human Torch, in a story that was written and drawn and inked by John Byrne, lit her on fire. He literally made her a burn victim. Issue 242, the further developments of our burn victim, Frankie Ray. What happens? This new herald of Galactus, Terex the Tamer, he's like, what do you call him? Like a telegeokinetic? I don't know. He can manipulate Earth matter, planetoid stuff. It's the result of the cosmic powers that were imbued in him by Galactus when he made him his herald. So Terex the Tamer is appearing here in issue number 242, and he's pissed off at Galactus. He wants to get rid of Galactus, so he lifts the island of Manhattan. Yep, he lifts the island of Manhattan, and he wants to launch it at Galactus' ship, where Galactus lives, and kill Galactus. And he says, I'll do it unless you guys kill Galactus yourselves. So then, of course, everybody's like, what the fuck, man? Was it Donald Blake, Spider-Man, Daredevil? They were not on the island of Manhattan, so they're trying to deal with the situation. Just thought this was a really cool cover, since you got all those other heroes here. Just listed there. It's like a real classic looking Marvel cover. Little captions down there. It's awesome. So the island's going out into space, and he's like, kill Galactus, and people's got to do what they got to do. Gonna kill Galactus. They end up getting him inches away from death, and Reed Richards deduces that Galactus has some type of like ecological role within the galaxy or the universe. His planet eating isn't just some type of bad habit. It's part of the, I don't know what you want to call it, galactic ecosystem, just the way shit works cosmically. So he lets Galactus live. I gotta say, a few months later, in an issue of Uncanny X-Men, I think it's 167, I've mentioned this before often, but Lilandra, she uses the Starjammer spaceship to make a holographic phone call, leaves a message. In that issue, I think it's just like a couple panels where she's warning Reed Richards. I think the Richards family, they're asleep. And she's like, yeah, Galactus ends up killing and destroying another planet. It's on you. We're holding you accountable. Yeah, that's Uncanny X-Men, March 1983 I was referring to. 243 is from June 1982. 244. July 1982. So we have our origin of Frankie Ray, 238. She becomes the Human Torch in issue 239. And then she becomes Nova in issue 244. Now, you know how I'm saying, like, how these writers from the 80s, Roger Stern, Chris Claremont, John Byrne, it's the first ones that come to mind. I'm just talking about, like, how people have, like, these, little plot threads, these little breadcrumbs that they leave along the way for us. Just comic book fans. I hate that term fanboy. It's cheese and it's from marketing departments. Kind of like the term grunge. But, yeah, it's like as fans in the comic book shop, you want to talk about like who is Wolverine. You want to talk about what's going on with Phoenix. You want to talk about what's going on with this and that, and little obscure things that you don't expect to happen, like this issue right here. Interesting stuff, with Franklin Richards. That story on the left, as I said before, is by Doug Munch, art by Bill Sienkiewicz. The fully full-on Byrne right here. Issue 245. Issue 245, keep an eye out. If you see it in the back issue bins, it has a double cover. None of the ones that I have found yet have a double cover, but just FYI, I've seen Fantastic Four 245 with a double cover. Franklin Richards. So one of the cool things that I'm referring to is, like, you don't always have to know everything that how things are going to turn out. But I always found it interesting, especially these days, this year that we're in, because a lot of these comics, when they're showing Franklin Richard in the 80s, they're always showing him around this year, around 2020, 2010, early 2000s. Same thing with that, like Days of Future Past. Just always kind of figured that they would have had, especially with all the events that have been going on, that marketing tool, gimmick, whatever, the event, instead of having Civil War II, they should have had maybe like Mosaic have something to do with like Days of Future Past, bringing that in or preventing it or something like that, because of all the buildup, with the Fantastic Four with Franklin Richards and then with the X-Men. Anyway, Franklin Richards, though, this isn't a Days of Future Past story. Franklin Richards, it's like he becomes overnight, or he suddenly becomes this adult. You're not sure who he is. He's like this huge beard, long hair. It's like this Christ-like looking figure. And he appears in Fantastic Four 245. Who is this guy? Turns out it's his mom right there. It's her son, Franklin Richards. It's this overpowered Franklin Richards. Once again, more story elements, plot devices of the whole psychic dampener, just like what you have with Frankie Ray. Well, the end of this story, Franklin Richards ends up putting some type of psychic dampeners on himself. He kind of inhibits his own cosmic power. It's almost like it's too great for him at that young age. He reverts himself back to a kid. Before he does some type of psychic dampeners on himself, suppresses his cosmic power, and he also turns Ben Grimm back to the Thing, because he made Ben Grimm human for a minute in this issue, and he could tell that Ben Grimm wanted to be his Rocky self. And the ever-loving blue-eyed Thing, I think, was afraid of what Alicia Masters would think of him. I'm not sure if there was something to do with it, but whatever. It's a really cool story, and it's the first appearance of this adult version of Franklin Richards. Also, though, Barbara Walker. She is a play off of the broadcast journalist, the woman that's always interviewing people from all over the world leaders and stuff, Barbara Walters. So this character, this Barbara Walker, in this issue of 245, August 1982 cover date, she questions Sue Storm on her name, her role in the Fantastic Four, especially given the name is girl, right, as opposed to woman. So we've got some type of meta discussion about how sexism plays a role in comics. I thought that was cool that John Byrne incorporated that in this particular issue. He expounds upon it later on, because I think it's this issue where Sue Storm ends up changing her name to Invisible Woman. That's right. Get to that in a minute. So I just thought it was really cool how, like, you would have elements, little breadcrumbs along the way with Wolverine, and then you'd have stuff like with Franklin Richards, and it's just another interesting aspect of the 80s that you never really paid attention to too much until like later on in life you look back and just realize, wow, it's like an aspect of the 80s, I guess. Interesting. Writers leaving little cool crumbs, plot threads, little subplot elements that you're not sure if they'll ever be developed. But that's okay, because it's all about just those little things, the fan's imagination, right? Real quick, just wanted to show this. I thought I'd include this because the cover is really cool. Fantastic Four 237. Same thing with these right here. Fantastic Four 246. Oh man, Doom. What it is. I like Mel Brooks. Comedian, writer, producer, director. Spaceballs. History of the World. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, this August 1982 comic, issue 247, whenever I see this, I just cracks me up. I don't think I delivered as well, but you know how like I can just picture like if Mel Brooks did like a spoof off of superheroes, and then he has this country like Latveria, and he has all these people there, and this guy comes out like Doom, and they're like, now we have to say the national anthem for our leader Doom. Just picture everyone in like this Mel Brooks sing-along deal. Hell yeah. Heck yes. The Latvian national anthem. However you want to cut it. I love it. It's like a little Mel Brooks tribute. You can picture Mel Brooks doing his comedy routine, doing a spoof off of superheroes. Having them all lined up, doing some type of hand gestures, you know. This land is my land. This land's not your land. From the Danube River through Romania. If you don't like it, well then go fuck you. My ruler is Dr. Doom. I can just picture like Mel Brooks having a bunch of people lined up, doing some type of like gestures, you know, telling people off, proud of their national anthem, serving Dr. Doom. Why not? I think that would be hilarious. Mel Brooks, History of the World, Spaceballs. Seems like something that I think would be a fitting spoof off of superheroes, especially something like Fantastic Four. This is the first appearance of Christoph Bernard. It's the adopted son of Victor von Doom, heir to the Latvian throne. Because you have this Zorba character taking over Latvia for a minute, so Doom needs the help of the Fantastic Four. Consequence of the war, he sees this one kid becoming orphaned. I'll tell you what you got to do if you want to enjoy some back issues of the Fantastic Four, but you just don't feel like reading them. You know what you do? You go on YouTube. I got this channel you got to see. I am not into motion comics. Typically, I really don't seek them out. There's a few that I found that are cool, that are definitely worth seeing. Some of those Wolverine motion comics are all right, but this channel, it's called Harry Bauer, Bauer. It's a YouTube channel, and this guy does Fantastic Four audio comics. I think he's done like about a half a dozen. They're really well done, and all I can say is just check out one episode. They're like, I don't know, 12 minutes long. You'll be recommending them to other people. Very entertaining, even if you're not into comic books. It's a great introduction to John Byrne's Fantastic Four for those non-comic book readers. Yeah, I love that cover. Fantastic Four 247. It's like my favorite Doom cover. One of them. Anyway, I think that cover right there, by the way, is like an homage, a cover swipe. Fantastic Four number 86, May 1969 homage cover is what I'm thinking. Some type of swipe off of. And this is 1982. What happened in 1982? Is that the Grandmaster Flash and Furious 5? Their album, The Message, didn't that come out in 82 officially? That's what I'm talking about right there. 'cause I'm on the edge. I'm trying just to get my empire back. What else was going on in 1982? 82, 83, John Byrne. First appearance of Puck and Marina. Alpha Flight issue number 1 right here. So Terry Austin did the first couple cover inks, but then 3 through issue 28. That's John Byrne that penciled and inked the covers and scripted, penciled, and I think he also inked. Yeah, up until issue 28, which is Secret Wars 2 tie-in. So that's 82 up until November 1985. John Byrne brings you Alpha Flight. James McDonald Hudson. First appearance was that second issue of the X-Men. John Byrne collaborated with Chris Claremont on. Is that issue 109? And then Alpha Flight, the death of James McDonald Hudson. That YouTube channel, Harry Bauer, he does this really great motion comic for an issue I'd like to recommend. 259, October 1983. It's where Dr. Doom compliments Sue Storm and how he thinks she's the most powerful member of the Fantastic Four. He's like, we all should get a place together. What do you say? Really liked this. I really enjoyed this Fantastic Four cover. 250, 249 the previous issue. You got the Imperial Guard led by Gladiator. And they're hunting Skrulls. Although the X-Men appear to make an appearance in this issue, they are actually Skrulls. Really enjoyed this comic. Remember when it came out? It's fucking really cool. Looks like this one's got the tattoos. Always make sure these babies got the tattoos. You feel me? Oh, yeah. So we got this comic right here, issue 252. Just really thought this was just a really cool comic. That's how it looks and everything. Be sure to get that in Canadian. Whoops. Just missed these. 249. Really cool cover. Alright, so now as a result of Reed Richards letting Galactus live back in June 1982, we're now talking like about a year and a half later. Reed Richards ends up disappearing as of like issue 260. And so the Fantastic Four try and recruit the help of Uatu, the Watcher, to try and find out what the hell's going on with Reed Richards. Where is he? And thus we have the trial of Reed Richards. He let Galactus live back in June of 82. Fantastic Four, issue number 262, cover date January 1984. John Byrne and his wife has a brief appearance. John Byrne is brought by Uatu to observe the trial of Galactus, so he can tell the tale right. Yeah, they got like Odin makes an appearance, I think, during this trial. Who's who of the cosmic witnesses. See, Reed Richards let Galactus live, and he ends up destroying the Skrull homeworld. So all these Skrulls looking for a home. I think that's why back in issue 249 and issue 250, while the Shire Imperial Guard were out hunting for Skrulls. So the consequence of Reed Richards being Reed Richards, thinking he knows what's going on, just fucking with people's lives like Ben Grimm and Frankie Ray. And now the whole entire Skrull homeworld planet. All right, so if 262 is January 1984, let's check this out. Marvel Universe. Issue number 12 came out December 1983. Those are all written by Mark Grunwald. He's doing all the character bios. Just want to point out some John Byrne here. This first volume of Marvel Universe, when it came out in the 80s, it was fucking awesome. It was amazing. I never expected to see something like this, just as a comic book reader, fan. I wasn't keeping up with all the details of who's who or what's what. Marvel Age was like the first intro to that for me. So even like what comes out, which day of the week, like New Comic Book Wednesdays, all that shit, paying attention to when that comes out so you make sure to get an issue, whatever. Never kept up with that throughout the 80s. It's just enjoying comics. So Paul Smith illustrations. So I think that's a Paul Smith then. Wolverine. I thought that was a John Byrne. I think that's a John Byrne Wonder Man though. Is that a John Byrne Wolverine? I gotta check that and verify to make sure, but well, that's cool. It's interesting. I always remembered this. This is Marvel Universe issue number 12 with Wolverine. For some reason, I always remembered this with like an image of his forearm and them indicating how his blades and his arms were actually originally bionic. Stuff about the bone claws is from Joe Quesada, Paul Jenkins. So Ed Hannigan and Joe Rubinstein did the covers of issues 1 through 12 of Marvel Universe. Issues 13 and 14 were like Book of the Dead or people that are just inactive, and John Byrne did the covers for those. Yeah, issues 13 and 14 came out February and March 1984. And then issue 15 is the last issue of this first edition of Marvel Universe. Although that is John Byrne doing the covers for the last 3 issues of Marvel Universe, 13, 14, and 15, the interiors, all these technical drawings, they're done by Elliot R. Brown. It's the same person that did that one cover of Fantastic Four that shows Doom's mask. It's like a photograph of Doom's mask. That photo is by Elliot R. Brown, and he did all these technical drawings. Really cool work. See if there's anything about Wolverine in here. Shield guns, Spider-Man's belt camera, Stiltman's battle suit. Nice. Here we go. Wolverine skeleton. I think that's John Byrne drawing right there. But that's Frank Miller. But this overall image, the head to toe, the skeleton, I think that's John Byrne. All right, let's look at this up close. Metal wrist and claw area. Cool. It's pretty dope. Adamantium, vibranium. Nice. John Byrne, 1984. Marvel Universe. Also in 1984, I don't have the comics to display, to show an image, but John Byrne wrote a bunch of issues of The Thing. The Thing number 10, written by John Byrne, depicts how the Fantastic Four were taken into the Secret Wars realm, that world, the Beyonders world, when they found this structure in Central Park. Byrne worked on the comic book The Thing. He wrote it from July 1983 until July 1984. 13 issues. Ron Wilson pencils. And then he also wrote issues 21 and 22, The Death of Tariana. That's someone that John Byrne introduced her in those first 12 issues that he wrote. Because as of May 1984, Thing issue number 11, it's when the Thing is in the Secret Wars world. So at the end of Marvel Superhero Secret Wars, that 12-issue limited series, I think it started like April 1984. At the end of it, the Thing decided to stay behind. So he has these like space adventures. And that's when She-Hulk replaces the Thing. Because see, what happens is like in a lot of these comic book issues, I think it's like what, Spider-Man issue 251, he goes to Central Park to investigate this structure. It's like this white, round, like a ring, this building in the shape of a ring. So the Beyonder made it appear. You don't know this yet, but he made it appear in Central Park, and anyone that goes to inspect it, touches it, goes too near it, I think there's like a couple of gateways inside of it, they get transported to this world. Well, first to the structure floating in space that separates villains and heroes, and then he puts them all in this battle world to fight. But the cool thing about it, my point is that like in issue 264 here in Fantastic Four, you know, the Thing is a member of the Fantastic Four. But then, you know, you don't know what happens to everybody until the 12-issue limited series Marvel Superhero Secret Wars ends. But the next issue, Fantastic Four 265, takes off as if they've all come back. So while you're reading the next 12 issues of Fantastic Four, you're reading that 12-issue limited series Marvel Superhero Secret Wars by Jim Shooter, art by Mike Zeck. Bob Layton did some fill-in issues, but so you're watching and finding out, well, what happened to the why did the Thing leave? What he's in some other world? Well, okay, well, check out Marvel Superhero Secret Wars. You know, Spider-Man's got a black suit. You know, Spider-Man 252, he appears with a black suit, right? Well, that was probably like the second or third issue of Marvel Superhero Secret Wars. You didn't know until later on how he got it. Pretty cool. Once again, more interesting aspects of that Copper Age, integrating different events, not being in your face, about a bunch of marketing gimmicks too with Marvel Superhero Secret Wars. Very well done. It's a great idea to promote the story. Issue 264, March 1984. So the Fantastic Four, they go to the battle world. 265 rolls around right here. A nice 75-cent price tag. She-Hulk joins the Fantastic Four. First comic book post Marvel Superhero Secret Wars. This is like a month before Amazing Spider-Man 252 came out. So before they worked on the X-Men, John Byrne and Chris Claremont, you know, they were on Iron Fist, and Byrne thought at the time, this is what I'm citing from a source I found, some wiki source, was how John Byrne and Chris Claremont, they wanted Iron Fist's costume to be some sort of alien being. Something so that, you know, since his costume, his suit, whatever, his garb's always getting torn up, it would save them the trouble of always having to incorporate something in the story as far as getting it repaired or having it be replaced or whatever. For fun, they decided that it would repair itself, right? This living organism. So years later, story goes, Stern was on The Amazing Spider-Man, and he had to give Spider-Man a new costume spinning out of the Secret Wars. And he asked John Byrne if he could use that living costume idea from Iron Fist, and Byrne gave him his approval, which was pretty cool. And Stern didn't last very much longer after Amazing Spider-Man 252. The idea didn't really go anywhere with Tom DeFalco. I think it was David Michelini that gave it a new host, Eddie Brock. And it was Todd McFarlane, of course, that turned it into Venom. Also, spinning out of 265, there's kind of a retcon, or there is a retcon that occurred later. Because you find out eventually, and this is after John Byrne wrote the comic, we're talking like by the 90s, you find out that Alicia Masters is a Skrull. She's this person called Elijah, becomes resurrected as Elijah the Laser Fist. So Elijah is a Skrull that was selected to infiltrate and destroy the Fantastic Four as assigned by Pybok the Power Skrull. And the plan involves secretly replacing Alicia Masters, taking her place. They didn't anticipate the Thing leaving, going to the Secret Wars and staying behind. So then she ended up seducing the Human Torch instead. And they ended up getting married in Fantastic Four issue number 300. Byrne, as you know, stayed on the Fantastic Four until issue 292. Also, I want to note, for 1984, got to show an image here. You've got Fantastic Four Special Edition number 1. It's a reprint of the first story from the Fantastic Four Annual number 1. Written by Stan Lee, art by Jack Kirby. Dick Ayers doing the colors. But then there's some alterations, some additions that John Byrne made. Panels that he added, and did some artwork in the style of Kirby. I'm not sure the details on that. So if anybody can leave me a comment, let me know about Fantastic Four Special Edition number 1 from May 1984. What exactly did John Byrne add to that story? So moving forward, John Byrne doesn't shy away from depicting serious topics. For example, issue 267, Sue has a miscarriage. There's a Doc Ock appearance because Reed Richards trying to solicit the help of as many scientists as he can to help save her. That's from June 1984. And yeah, that's issue 268 that I was referring to a little while ago when I was showing how Elliot Brown did all the technical drawings in this. And that's his photograph of the Doom mask for Fantastic Four issue 268, that photo cover. And here is the last comic book that John Byrne consistently wrote on that Fantastic Four while he was doing, covers, inks for the pencils he was doing for the interior as well as the cover, and writing, all of it, except for, was it Glynis Oliver, right? That's the colorist. Here we have issue 273, the appearance of Nathaniel Richards, Reed Richards' father. First appearance of Nathaniel Richards. Traveled to this other Earth, this other dimension, where they've got like this tech, high tech mixed with like Western cowboy type gear. His cameo is in the previous issue, 270, 272. So Nathaniel Richards, damn, if I understand correctly, he gets the help of the Fantastic Four so he can get out of whatever trouble he got himself into in this other dimension. He then, after this issue here, goes back in time and becomes Rama Tut. So Rama Tut first appeared in Fantastic Four issue number 19, way back when, by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. And then Rama Tut ends up going to the future. He thinks he's going to the 42nd century, but then he ends up getting some technical difficulties, a little car trouble. He ends up stopping in the 20th century. He's in the 20th century. He's outside of like Jupiter. He's floating Saturn, and he finds Doom floating in space and thinks that Doom is most likely one of his ancestors, I believe. And he's inspired by the look of Doom and how he could potentially be one of his ancestors. So then he goes to the future, jumpstart his vehicle, tries to go to the into the future. He tries to go to the future. I think it's like the 42nd century, some shit like that. Misfires, ends up missing by I don't know how many thousands of years. He ends up in like the 32nd century. And he becomes the Scarlet Centurion, fashioning his look and everything after Doom, and then makes it to the future he needs to make it to. Or as a Scarlet Centurion, or he makes it to some other dimensions where he starts conquering them. He starts conquering other worlds. He makes it to some future where he ends up calling himself Kang. So he goes from this issue right here to being Rama Tut, Fantastic Four, 19, and then Kang, which is Avengers number 8 or 9. Avengers number 8 is Kang's first appearance. It's also interesting to note, since I've been mentioning the developments of the storytelling, the black costume of Spider-Man, how it's been developed. The following issue after this, issue 274, the black costume escapes. Because I guess Reed Richards finds out that Venom is susceptible. His weakness is sound waves, resonance, to get that right frequency. They'll separate him from his host. So they had him contained. And this following issue, Fantastic Four, issue 274, the symbiote escapes. 274, 275, you got interior inks by Al Gordon, Jerry Ordway. As of 276 and 277, Jerry Ordway. So 274, 275, you got Al Gordon doing the interior inks. Issue 275 here. Some people mention that guy right there is possibly a metaphor for Stan Lee. He's peddler of smut. That guy runs some type of porno mag. And this issue starts off with his people taking photos of She-Hulk sunbathing topless, and story ends with her destroying the safe that he has, holding the negatives of the images. So it's like he won't give them to her, so she just ends up crushing the safe, like crumpling a piece of paper, destroying everything inside of it. Yeah, man. Interesting take here. Another serious issue that he touches upon, exploitation. It's February 1985. So 276 and 277, you got Jerry Ordway doing the interior inks. And then 278 to 283, Jerry Ordway not only inks the interiors, but he also inks the covers. In case you're curious, as far as the remaining issues of John Byrne does ink the covers of 274, 275, 276, 277, 282, 284, 285, and 288. Those are all John Byrne covers, inks, pencils, and writing. FYI. So we're talking April 1985? Some Franklin Richards comics. Issue 222 by Doug Munch, Bill Sienkiewicz. Next to here, John Byrne. Right, Jerry Ordway, interior inks. 245, 277. Cool thing about 277, so the previous issue in 276, the Fantastic Four, Reed and Sue, they're living in Connecticut. They're in the suburbs. They want to get away. They want to raise their kid in peace. But, they're the Fantastic Four. So neighbors start seeing them using their abilities. People get suspicious. And one of the neighbors thinks that there should be an exorcism done on them in their house. That they've got some type of dark magic going on. So this woman that they send over, she ends up summoning, I think at the end of the day, they all are unconscious. It's because she summoned Mephisto. She screws up. And the FF, they're unconscious. Reed, Sue, and their kid. And then Doctor Strange, it's just like I said with Roger Stern's Under Siege storyline. No matter how bad this shit hits the fan, just like when Dr. Druid was able to have some type of vision or some type of sense, connection with the Black Knight, and then he knew that the Black Knight was subdued. He was all tied up. They're all screwed over at the Avengers Mansion when they got attacked. There's always going to be somebody with some type of psychic link, some type of magical, telepathic connection, have a vision, save your ass. So that's what happens. Doctor Strange shows up and finds out that their astral forms are in hell. Mephisto's got Franklin Richards encased in this crystal, and he wants to basically drain him of his power. This comic, by the way, what's cool about it? This is the Canadian edition. It's lateral, people. Check it out. So we got two different stories here. It's divided. Top half is Ben Grimm. He's checking out how he's back from his travels throughout space, right? After Marvel Superhero Secret Wars, and finds out that his best friend, Johnny Storm, is doing his girlfriend, Isha Masters. Bottom half, you have the members of the Fantastic Four, Reed and Sue, being tortured by Mephisto. And what happens is that you find out just more clues about how powerful Franklin Richards is. Because he ain't having it. And he not only stops Mephisto, it's like he blows him up, destroys him. Well, it doesn't destroy him, but yeah, She-Hulk's speculating on how much longer she's going to be a member of the Fantastic Four now that the Thing's back here. All right. And I got to say, too, it's cool, like, how he changed Johnny Storm's hairstyle. I thought that was cool. As far as just living in the 80s goes, it was right on. I'd say it's a good style. Same thing with Sue Storm. I thought that was cool that John Byrne did that. He worked on a little bit of style, modernizing them. Anyway, the consequences of Mephisto, right? Blowing up. John Byrne's going to follow up with that, actually, later on in the West Coast Avengers. So you want to keep an eye out for West Coast Avengers. Excuse me. You want to keep an eye out for Avengers West Coast, issue 52 from 1989. Master Pandemonium. He's sent by Mephisto to collect 5 shards of Mephisto. And eventually those shards in that storyline, they're used to create Wanda's kids. But that's 1989. We're talking right here, 277. Issue 277. That's like 1985. Issue 278, right after this, you've got the first appearance of Hate Monger from May 1985. It's also got a Doom origin story. Hate Monger was created by Psycho Man, and he was sent to Earth to help destroy the Fantastic Four, which Hate Monger tries to do. He teams up with Puppet Master, and more people being hypnotized, forgetting who they are, more identity changes. You could say another theme of someone being exploited. Fantastic Four, issue 280. We have Malice. Sue Storm is manipulated, pretty much brainwashed into becoming this new villain. It's pretty kick-ass. It's badass. They didn't know who she was, right? It's pretty nasty. I mean, she gets totally taken advantage of, right? I mean, a lot of that, like in like the movie versions of Captain Marvel and Black Widow. And also Jean Grey, too. People getting their mind wiped, being manipulated. This is a really interesting story, and Sue Storm looks really fucking hot in this comic. Issue 280 and 281, you got Hate Monger and Alicia Master's stepfather, Puppet Master, trying to spread hate throughout the world. And they got Malice here on their side, and they realize, Reed finds out that it's Sue because of the information he was getting from Daredevil. Daredevil, he's got this radar, so he's looking at this like blob that keeps changing shape. He's able to perceive, with his sonar type abilities, the force fields that Malice is creating, and then Reed, with a bunch of other deductions, realizes that it's Sue Storm. And I do a review, actually, of issue 281 in a previous comic book video. I'll put the links down below. You can take a look. Let me know what you think of that comic. Reed snaps Sue out of it by giving her a backhanded slap. Reed literally slaps her out of that state that she's in. So that's July and August 1985. Got a supervillain team up, Hate Monger and Puppet Master. Issue 284. Because they go to the negative zone to search for Psycho Man. Put him in his place after what he did. And then in issue 284, following these traumatic experiences that Sue Storm had, the Invisible Girl, with Psycho Man, she changes her name to Invisible Woman. It's like, when that occurred, I was just sort of like, oh yeah. Like, overdue. Yeah, when that occurred, I think everybody was like, yeah, it's pretty overdue. That name change. It was pretty cool that John Byrne did that. Issue 288 is a Secret Wars 2 tie-in. Because you know how, like, at the end of Marvel Superhero Secret Wars in issue 12, Doom tried to steal the power of the Beyonder? Tried to take him out. Doom is the shit. Also, it would be nice to note how issue 286, it's revealed how the real Jean Grey was in a psionic cocoon this whole time. Since, I think, like, issue 102, 101 of the X-Men. And the consequences of that story, of issue 286, you get the original X-Men teaming up together for the X-Factor title. And then, from issue 232 all the way to issue 292, we got ourselves a John Byrne run. Writing and penciling the Fantastic Four, this legendary run, bringing the FF back into the mainstream consciousness, taking more money from our wallets, these stellar stories. This last story arc, you've got more people in a virtual reality realm. Just as in issue 236, where the Fantastic Four were put in some type of virtual reality world by Doom and Puppet Master, this is actually, you find out, I think it's just a 2-issue story arc, 291, 292, you find out it's S.H.I.E.L.D. They're testing Nick Fury, they're testing the Fantastic Four. They've got them in some type of a virtual reality without them knowing. And they've got them thinking that they are back in time during World War II, just to see what they would do. And it's cool how Nick Fury decides to pull the trigger, hunt down Hitler, kill him. I like that. I thought that was awesome that they had him do that. And, they didn't do like some, I don't know, Comics Code Authority version where he would be almost about to kill Hitler, but then he would decide, well, no, I can't because of the greater good, or I don't know, I'm better than that, or some shit. So he kills Hitler at the end, and then he wakes up. And this is the last issue that John Byrne did, issue 292, July 1986. Leading up to this, December of 1985. December 1985. It's a John Byrne cover, John Byrne script and pencils, until Incredible Hulk 319. Then Al Milgrom took over for a minute doing writing, pencils, covers, and Todd McFarlane did the cover for issue 330 of one of Al Milgram's books there. And then Peter David took over the Incredible Hulk. The issue that comes is that the Toy Biz reprint from like around 2005, I think. Love this cover. Issue number 316. The Hulk got separated from Banner and it's on this rampage. John Byrne, powerhouse, doing all the powerhouses. You know what I'm saying? We got The Man of Steel by John Byrne. John Byrne, so what? He brings the Golden Age back to the Silver Age heroes of the Fantastic Four, and then he's given the ultimate Golden Age hero, Superman. He's given the task to modernize him. He tries to use the word depower, but yeah, he depowers him to an extent. So John Byrne gets rid of some of the camp, goofiness of like him being able to move an entire planet, or some of the silliness, some of the extreme feats that he would accomplish. He reduced those and made him susceptible to be hurt by magic, for example. So there's a lot of definitions of how his powers worked with Superman, and some restrictions that would actually open up more storytelling possibilities or hopefully fan interest, and it did. He really made Superman just blow up out of the water, and had, I think it was among some of the first B covers too, was with that first issue of Man of Steel. So that's Man of Steel, 6-issue limited series. It was bi-weekly. You had 2 issues in October of 86, November of 86, and then it ended, issues 5 and 6, December 1986. Redefined Superman. Even gave him like a Christopher Reeve type of look, in my opinion. Really just some amazing stuff. I think he also applied that corporate business image more so too with Lex Luthor. So furthermore, here are some important mentions of John Byrne's Copper Age contributions. We're talking like 1986, 1987 and onwards. Superman #1 came out January 1987, and he worked on that for 22 issues until October 1988. We're talking writer, cover, penciler. He did not do the interior inks, though. Also, right after Alan Moore and Kurt Swan's beloved story, Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, Action Comics 583 from September 1986. After that, from Action Comics 584, John Byrne, once again, took over writing, cover, pencils. He did not do the inks, but that is from Action Comics 584, January 1987 cover date, until issue number 600, May 1988. And then they were weekly. They changed the title to Action Comics Weekly from like, I don't know, 601 to 642. And then they went back to Action Comics 643 with George Perez. Starbrand, January 1988, the Marvel, what is that, New Universe title. Yeah, from issue 11 until the last issue, issue number 19, May 1989. And it was not monthly by that time. So, yeah, man. John Byrne went from the Man of Steel to the Man of Adamantium. Covers and interior pencils only on those. He did not write, but that's from Wolverine, issue 17, November 1989. It's just such a fucking badass cover, that Wolverine, that 17th issue. Got that boxed away in storage somewhere. So he worked on Wolverine till issue number 23, April 1989. Archie Goodwin script. It's all right, you know. Jim Lee followed up after that with Peter David. West Coast Avengers. It ran from issues, I think it was 1 to 46. And then this is the first issue where it became Avengers West Coast. So as of issue number 42 of West Coast Avengers, you got John Byrne working on that title. West Coast Avengers issue 45, you've got the first White Vision. West Coast Avengers issue 46, you have the first Great Lakes Avengers. Being from Detroit area, such a fucking letdown seeing that team. I was like, what the fuck? You gotta be goddamn kidding me. Ay. Give Chicago some respects at least. Damn. Yeah, those guys, because they were funny. It was a great team. It was a great idea. Placing them as the Great Lakes Avengers. Yeah, all right. It worked. So when Mephisto, when he blew up, and Franklin offed him, later on, like I was referring to earlier, in Avengers West Coast issue number 52, it's out of 1989, Master Pandemonium collecting the 5 shards of Mephisto, and I believe eventually they were used to create Wiccan and Speed, Wanda's kids, and then also to follow up on that whole dark Scarlet Witch motif, West Coast Avengers issue 56 and 57 by John Byrne. March and April of 1990 deals with Scarlet Witch losing her mind again. So, woo! Damn, to wrap it up, that Scarlet Witch story right there, you got some insanity with the Scarlet Witch being carried over from that Avengers, 185 to 187 story, originally plotted by Stephen Grant, Mark Grunwald, with script by David Michelini. This Avengers run right there. John Byrne worked that further in Avengers West Coast 56 and 57, March and April 1990. Scarlet Witch bugging out. And then even more comics by John Byrne. He wrote Avengers 305 to 317 in 1990. He did the cover for 305, but the art is by Paul Ryan, and John Byrne scripted that till issue 317. Oh yeah. What a run of comics, images, information. I like John Byrne. In case you can't tell, I think John Byrne's all right. Does some great stuff. I dig the Copper Age. A lot of information. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I tried to show as many comics as I could. Got a bunch of other stuff locked up in storage, so tried to be as thorough as I could. Just really appreciate your time sitting through this video. Any type of feedback would be appreciated. Just tried to put as many comics from my own collection that I have access to right now up as I can here, and just enjoying showing off these comics. I really enjoyed making this outline. Just really dig John Byrne's Copper Age work, Copper Age comics in general. It's weird, like I went from a period of just like kind of rejecting them. A lot of that was just from the speculator bubble and the whole push for everyone being a mutant, and first issues, and the quality of inking and coloring was really bad by like 87, 88 for sure. Not across the board, but just it was too often for me, too frequent. Stories were lacking depth. So, there's a lot of the Copper Age that is fantastic, and a lot of those writers I just blew off, took advantage of. Like I said, I never really kept track of who was who or when stuff came out or how stuff worked behind the scenes. So later on in life, as you get older, you learn to appreciate that. And then especially just the quality of work from former Marvel the past 10 years, 15 years, just been fucking off the hook, awful. That, not all of it, but the goodness, in my opinion, has been far and few between, more so than not. So it just gained more and more appreciation on top of just what I've already been gaining for Copper Age comics. So a lot of that are John Byrne's a huge chunk of that. That's why this video is so huge. Just want to show some appreciation for my own collection, for my own comic book collecting experiences, and pass that on. I mean, I've only got so many windows of time, like I've mentioned before, for doing these types of videos. So kind of wish I'd be in a better mode for a lot of these vids, but I work with what I got. Let's review, shall we? Although that first FF Byrne victim was already on fire in Marvel Team Up number 61. Yeah, trying to do some play on words there. Anyway, it's the Human Torch. John Byrne's first FF Byrne victim. The Human Torch, Marvel Team Up number 61. September 1977. Then you got your thing, right? Marvel 2-in-1, number 53, July 1979. Mark Grunwald, Ralph Macchio. Script, to reiterate. But then it's another Fantastic Four Byrne victim. The Thing. You got your 209. First Byrne pencils. 1979. 211. Now he's doing interior pencils. He's doing a cover. So you got first appearance of Herbie. First appearance of Tyros, who becomes Terox. And then John Byrne's first run doing interior pencils ends with issue 218. So you got 209 to 218. John Byrne goes from just interior pencils and covers, to now writing interior pencils and covers. Issue 232 now. All in one. Joe Sinnott ends his 16-year run as an inker. And John Byrne starts his epic, 60-issue run, 232 to 292. Bringing the golden age to the Fantastic Four. Back to the basics, baby. Issue 236. This must be a good one to mention because it's got Jack Kirby's story in there. Stan Lee appearance on the cover. It's our first John Byrne portrait on the cover. Now more like themed type of subjects. Ethics. 242, 243. We got ourselves here first appearance of Nova. Consequences. Trial of Reed Richards. She-Hulk joining. Issue 265. Hell yeah. What'd you say? Don't forget issue 245 too? Alright, fine. 245. Let's add that one too. And what else? What do you think? You let me know. What are your John Byrne key Fantastic Four comics that I've neglected to mention? Some annual out there, or some other special that came out during the Copper Age that I neglected to list? I don't know. Please clue me in. Let me know if I missed anything. Oh, I know what else. More ethics in comics. Also, that meta conversation about sexism in comics. Eventually you got her changing her name to Invisible Woman. From her being questioned by it in 245. Her changing her name to Invisible Woman in 284. Got some exploitation going on with Fantastic Four, She-Hulk. 275, exploitation going on. 280, 281. And then you've got one of the ultimate ethics going on here. The killing of Hitler. Ooh-wee! God damn. John Byrne's kicking ass. Burn that copper into gold. You'll recommend this vid if you ever hear someone say, "Duh, I don't know who the fuck is John Byrne, duh, what's a burn?" then you recommend this vid. You have them watch this video so that they can sit through it, and at the end they can hear me mock them. Much appreciated. Y'all gotta know that I love me some Marvel comics. As much disdain or frustration or just inhibitions that I have about how stuff has been run the past 10, 15 years. I love comics. I love superheroes. I love all types of comics, like indie, and I do like the mainstream, just not the recent stuff. There's so much goodness out there, and I really believe that given the current state, especially with the price of comic books today, $5 for a new comic book. That whole new comic book day every Wednesday tradition is just going to go to the wayside, and people are going to be paying more and more attention to those back issues. Go hit up the dollar hollers. Check out yourself some Copper Age affordable comics. Get yourself some John Byrne, some Roger Stern, some Chris Claremont, some David Michelini, some Mark Grunwald. Do some research. I hope this video has helped instigate some interest in some Copper Age comics, some additions to your collection. Yo, thank you for watching. Really appreciate any kind of constructive feedback. Really appreciate your time going on this burning journey with me. Swing by again and keep an eye out for that next a sequential spotlight. And on that note, I float as I quote,
Everything burns.